What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of LS1 Cressy. Yeah, this episode I'm gonna be probably focused on getting my fuel system sort of semi-mounted. I've got my fuel pumps, my surge and my cell now, so I'm gonna probably drop the fuel tank out of it and start mounting all that up in the boot and maybe mount the battery in that as well. But I thought I'd start off the video. I've been super busy this week running around grabbing parts, so I thought I'd start off the video just showing you what I've got or what I've accumulated in the past couple of weeks and sort of add it to the cost count. So cost count up here, it's going to be there now. Up there, you probably would have seen it if you watched the video of nonsense and us bending Rexus 31, but up there is the turbo that I desired for it. My absolute gem of a missus bought it for me for my birthday, but that was around 350 bucks, I think, 350, 360. It's just an eBay T66, so that's sweet. I've got down here a spare diff. I traded an S13 diff for that, so that was pretty much nothing. I've got one Series 1 sway bar. The Series 1 rear sway bars are 14mm and the Series 2 are only 10, so I plan on running dual Series 1 sway bars. So I got that Series 1 sway bar for 30 bucks from a bloke down in South Brisbane. So that's pretty cool. Rex has been busy here sorting out 31 and cruiser things, so plenty happening at the moment. Car's full of crap, big Falk. So in here I've got some 31 bits and pieces that we need to fix Rex's 31, headlights, Rio, that sort of thing. I also bought like all this like exhaust and flanges and stuff bulk from a bloke for like 100 bucks, which is awesome. And that's going to come in real handy for some future projects. I won't use that on my Cressy because I need 4-inch, that's all 3-inch, but I just thought for 100 bucks for all this bulk exhaust stuff would be awesome just to have for our future projects. So yeah, I bought all that for 100 bucks, which is sick. So I was pretty happy with that. So what have I got in here for the Cressy? Actually, I'm just going to get this out of the car. It's going to be too hard to do it while it's all in the car. So I'm going to get it all out and then I'll show you what's all in there. All right, so now it's all out of the car. It's a lot easier. So all this 31 stuff actually is from my old 31. So I got onto the bloke that bought my 31 who's putting the motor and box out of it into an EH, which is sick. I hope to do a video of that soon when it's done. But I knew he had my shell there, so I sort of hit him up for the stuff that we bent on the other 31 the other day. And so he was kind enough to get that out for us. So we've got enough stuff there to sort of fix what we bent on the 31 the other night. And we've got some new rear coilovers for Rex's 31 because his rears are knocking like no one's business and it's a pain. As far as what I got for the Cressy, so this is my Defi all-in-one copy. I actually bought that off Alex Brown. Those of you who follow me on Instagram probably have a pretty good idea who Alex Brown is. He doesn't make many appearances in my videos, but he's a good mate of mine and Adam's and Liam's, and he has built some pretty crazy cars, but he sold me that for 80 bucks. All this stuff, the intercooler, the surge, the pump, and just a couple of fittings all came from a mate of mine by the name of Macaulay. Macca's got a pretty crazy RB20 DET Corona that's called Psycho 20. It's currently being revised. It's going to be pretty nuts when it gets out and it's done though. And he sold me the intercooler for 20 bucks, the surge for 20 bucks, and just gave me the fuel pump and the fittings. So that's a Bosch 044, so I'm going to be running 2 of them. We've got another spare on the shelf over there, so I'll be running twin Bosch 44s out of the surge, and like I explained in my last video, the cell that I got was free as well, so that's 40 bucks basically for all of this. I'm still not sure if I'm going to use this intercooler or not. It's actually only a 450. I can get a 600, and because I have room for a 600, I'm thinking about buying a 600 and running a 600. But if that's the case, I will probably use this for the Falcon. So it will definitely get used either way, but I'm just not sure if it'll go on the Cressy yet. I might dummy it up and see how it looks. And lastly, these engine mounts. I actually traded another mate, Trav, who had an LS1 Cressida, a heap of Commodore stuff off my SS for these engine mounts and gearbox mount. So I've actually got proper bolt through tough mounts sort of things, which is good because these are pretty expensive, and because I was on a budget, I was actually looking at going for solid mounts, just billet aluminium solid mounts, which I wasn't too stoked on because I didn't really want to rattle my teeth out, but they were cheaper than this style of urethane proper tough mount sort of things. So that's where I was going until Trav basically told me he was keen to swap these for a heap of Commodore stuff. So they were swapped for a heap of Commodore stuff, plus he paid me 50 bucks for what I traded for him. So That actually made $50 out of that, plus to get my engine mount to gearbox mount, so deduct $50 off the cost there. So yeah, that's pretty much a few things that I've gotten collected here and there for cheap, which is good. And yeah, I'm not going to do the whole video of getting the Cressy up here at the moment, because obviously after 2 episodes you've probably figured it out. It's a pain in the ass. I'm not going to keep doing it every episode, but I'm going to drag the Cressy up and yeah, hopefully get started on this mounting the fuel stuff and mounting the battery in the boot and start doing a bit of that. Alrighty, I was going to do fuel system, but I've gotten sidetracked sorting out the front of this now, so that's sort of what I'm doing now. I'll get the fuel system later. But basically planning on running the standard Cressy, well not standard, but this alley Cressy rad that came with my Cressida. So it's a full alley rad still. It's going to do the job quite well, and it obviously fits at all the points quite nice. So I plan on running that basically the way it is. I pretty much plan on deleting this whole support panel for the top radiator support, just because I don't really need it. I'm not going to be running a bonnet latch. Obviously track car, I'm just going to have bonnet pins, so bonnet latch sort of is not necessary, so I'm going to delete all that. It's all coming out. Then the plan is to pretty much mount the cooler basically with the bottom as far in here towards like nearly touching the radiator as I can on top of this panel, and then try and angle it forward as much as I can. I'm happy to cut out like a lot of the bottom of the reel if I have to, and so mount it so that it's facing forward a bit. And then I plan on off the bottom of this panel basically making just a sheet bottom lip splitter sort of thing that basically is just a big dam or mouth that just points, basically directs air straight up through the cooler, which obviously if it's laying down it's going to get better surface sort of area for cooling. It also means that it's not against the radiator, which is better for heat soak. So if there's a bit of air room between the radiator and the cooler, you're going to get less heat soak, which is going to keep everything nice and cool. So obviously, and that direction of air coupled with like my D-Max bonnet vent that I plan on running is going to pretty much just draw heaps of air up through everything and out the bonnet, is basically the idea behind all that. So I've sort of started with that. I think I will run the 450 cooler. Obviously for starters I got it cheap, which is good. And now that it's going to be track car and E85 only, it's not as important to have such a big cooler because it's not going to be running as hot. So that's basically my justification there. Plus the 450 fits nice and snug, plenty of room either side. So just another development as well, just because I'm going E85, which means I'm going to be doing the fuel system, which means I can bring my fuel lines up this side now because they're going to be getting changed anyway, which means now that all the reasons that I wanted to run the turbo on this side is now redundant, because now I'm going to have fuel on, I can run fuel up that side if I want. So I'm going to change the turbo to passenger side, which means I'm going to have more room for a dump pipe, which is going to be way better. And obviously just cut out the bottom of here, this guard, the same way it is for the ABS module on that side, which that will get deleted as well. And cut this out, run my pod filter down there. So heaps of air room there for intake. So heaps of room there. Plan is to basically run oil cooler lines around to this side. Run oil cooler on this side again, just delete that. It's just a nothing panel there. And once this is gone, I'm deleting all the ABS stuff, because obviously a drift car, you don't want ABS, don't really need ABS. I plan on building like an auxiliary water tank to sit down in here. Obviously not down, because as you can see, it does clash with the front wheel a bit. So this whole bucket system is going to get taken out. So bottom of the tank will be flush basically with where that mounts there, and basically build like a 200 by 200 by 250 auxiliary water tank, which is an extra sort of 5 litres, which is about an extra 50% on top of the cooling capacity of what it is already. So all of this put together, along with like obviously oil cooler, I run power steering coolers as well. And I'm actually thinking about potentially, because it's an auto rad, it's actually got transcooler things already. So I'm actually thinking about even potentially running my T56 oil through the transcooler with an external pump if it's got provisions to use that. But basically, if this all works the way I think it's going to be set up this way, it's going to be pretty much bulletproof. It should never get hot, and it should be awesome. So that's what I'm working at here, and I'll get to the fuel system soon. All right, it's not quite going to work the way I thought it was. Cooler's just a bit too big to sit where I thought it was going to. So obviously sitting on top of that, it's not going to work because those outlets are way too close to that support rail. So basically what I'm going to have to do is basically mount it in front of the support rail, and I'm still going to lean it down as much as I can. So I'm pretty happy with how it sits in there. Now just sort of figuring out ways to actually mount it up. These are some just alley brackets that are safe from work. They were meant to be used to actually hold down solar panels onto a roof for solar lights, but we don't really use them at work, so I grabbed the whole heap of them. Gonna use them to try and sort of bend up some sort of mounting system to mount it up in there, because obviously once it's leaning forward, these holes are like on a weird angle, and it's pretty hard to bolt them through that. Plus, if you have a bolt on the outside, it's gonna interfere with where your bumper goes on, so you need to sort of make a mount that's gonna mount to the back of that and sort of bend down and mount to the intercooler inside, so that's the go now. Alright, so it's sort of coming along here. We've got a big storm here going on, so I'm a bit worried the power might go out pretty soon, so I just want to get some explanations before it might do, because we'll have no light and I won't be able to do anything. To actually mount these brackets to the mounting points on the cooler, I've had to use stainless bolts because it's all I've really got. Now, stainless is super strong, which is awesome, and doesn't rust, which is also awesome, but because it's strong, it's got that hardness, it has a tendency to seize, which can be real bad. So basically I've had to cut these down because they were too long. Now after you cut them down, you chamfer them off. I'm just using a bench grinder. You can use a stone on the grinder or whatever you need to. And just a pro tip, when you're chamfering these down on the stone, I'll show you with the stone off, you want to always angle the bolt so that the stone spins that way. You want to angle it away from the thread as you grind. That way when it chamfers, it pushes everything out. If you angle it up or across, generally what you do is just push all the material into the threads, which causes a lot of problems later as far as binding up and that sort of thing goes. Basically, and the other thing is, before you go threading it into your mount, just put a nut on it and clean out the thread. Take the nut up and down a few times to make sure it's nice and clean. And when you're mounting it into stuff, just always take it easy. Use a spanner, do it by hand, and just, if it's gonna bind up, don't force it. Take it back out, clean it up. Because when these seize, they're a real pain in the ass. Not such a massive deal on softer metals if you're using stainless with a softer metal, but yeah, it can be very painful when they seize. It's not very good. So just a pro tip there. Stuff takes ages. Obviously, when you're custom building stuff, it's always going to take a long time. There's not really any way around it. It just takes time. So if you do manage to sort of screw up with your stainless a bit, which I have done here, which is unfortunate for me, but sort of fortunate because I get to show you guys something. So I tried to put a shortened bolt in the bottom hole here, and it sort of didn't quite work. It cross-threaded and it burred up the thread. Now, because this is alloy, it's very soft, and what'll happen is, even once you get the stainless out, which I did because obviously you don't force it because it'll bind, but because it's Rexam thread in there in the alloy, it'll stay in there because it's really soft, and it'll create problems for you forever. Basically, you won't be able to get rid of it. So what you need to do is make what I sort of call as a thread chaser or a thread cleaner. It's almost like a die, to cut a new thread, but for a thread that's already been cut that you just need to clean out. So what I've done here is just taken a regular stainless bolt, just an M8 bolt like I was trying to use that was shortened down, one that's not shortened. I've just taken the grinder and just straight up and down the bolt, I've just put a slot, 2 slots, one each end, like so. Make sure you try and get them as straight as you sort of can. After I did the slots, where I made the cuts, I sort of just ground down a little bit on the stone wheel, just a little bit, so that they don't grab anywhere they shouldn't do. And then after that, just make sure you clean it up real well with the wire wheel, just so that there's nothing on like in the ends of the threads that might get caught or cause problems. Clean it up real well with the wire wheel. Then just get some lubricant, like some WD-40, which I have done here, and just use that to screw in, and just keep screwing it all the way up and down. And what'll happen is these little slots will pretty much draw out, so you can see where it's all over my fingers, what it's actually drawn out. That's just coming off the bolt from one in and out. So do that a few times to really clean out the thread. And then obviously make sure your bolt's good again and try again. Like I said, don't ever try and force it too much because the stainless is very hard, the alloy's soft, and it will just tear it up. So important to do that. That's one way you can get around absolutely screwing yourself out of it. And that's just a pretty simple, easy, quick little thread chaser, or whatever you'd want to call it, but it works, it's effective. So here we have somewhat the finished finished product, sorry, I should say. So it's mounted at the top. Those brackets just sort of go down, do a 90, and they mount in there with some more stainless bolts, just with some spring washers on them. Again, you don't want to do them up too tight. and the bottom's just the other half of the bracket basically made to bolt under there, and it's solid as. It's not going anywhere, and as the principle is, it's far enough away from the radiator that we're not going to get heat soak issues, so it's looking pretty good. Happy with that, mates?
Looks good, mate.
Good, mate. It's looking pretty good. Got a few fitment issues with just these cutouts on the bumper, so I'll just cut them back to basically flush and just cut the tops of them out like that so that it sits down nice, but from the front looks good. Doesn't hang down too low. So I just made some cuts to the bumper with the air hacksaw. So cut out these parts that clash. We'll do a little fitment test and see how it goes.
Just to be clear, it's a hacksaw that's powered by air. It is not a hacksaw that cuts air, because that would be ridiculous.
And it's also not an air-powered saw that's cut by hack.
Why would I bark like a dog?
Because you're completely fucked!
Oh, Jenny, you had that. Gonna shake this.
So pretty lucky that the power hasn't gone out yet. Have got the fuel tank out. Nice big open space. Very nice. So I'll mount the cell and the surge in the boot. So yeah, I'll get onto that now. So yeah. Righto, now I've got the job of clearing out the boot, ready for mounting all this crap. Full of shit. Got so much stuff in here. Gonna have to clear it all out. It's gonna suck. But anyway, gotta be done. Alright, so mostly the boot is cleared out, but I have to go for a walk in the rain down to the other shed to get my cell because it's down there. So
Where's the postie bike?
do that and get wet.
The postie bikes are down there.
No, it's wet, no postie bikes. So this is somewhat how the boot setup's gonna look. I've got the battery mounted in the spare wheel well, nice and low. I'll mount that box down there and just sit the battery down in there. Got the 40 litre cell. Basically mounted just far enough back that I can still fill it with a jerry can without it smacking the boot lid or anything. So that's alright, but it does have like a little sump that I have to actually cut out in the boot so it actually sits down flat. Then I got my surge with my twin Bosch 044s. That's pretty much somewhat how I want to run them so that I can use this hole just to run all my lines through. So what I've done here is just mark out a square, measured that up, marked out in a square, drilled a hole in each corner so that I can get the air hacksaw blade in and just basically cut this out so that
not a square, though.
Sits in. Rectangle.
It's a rectangle.
God, you're an annoying fucking fuck.
Don't give the internet false information.
What would it be in a 3D
It's not
form?
equal size.
What would it be in a 3D form? Would it be a rectangle?
I'm so lucky to have these people here to help me. Cut the hole out. Trusty old air hacksaw. Does the job. It's not very straight. That's alright. No one's gonna know. Except for me and you guys. Don't tell anyone. So it looks pretty repugnant, but it's gonna work. Repugnant. Anyway, I probably will maybe clean up that hole later. I probably won't. I don't know. Drift car life. It's whatever.
Hey,
as long as it works, it's good.
I've heard that before.
Looks good to me. Righto, so basically just messing around with options for this. This is somewhat of what I've come up with. So it'll be like cell out of one pickup, a lift pump on this side, into the surge, which is then into the twins, and then down through the floor there, and then actually mount the battery on this side. And that way everything's sort of quite even. Also it means I can still fit a spare wheel down in the factory spare wheel well when I go to the track if I need to. So I don't know, this is what I'm thinking at the moment. As far as like a lift pump, thinking about just actually getting a third 044 to feed the surge, and then obviously twins to feed. So I don't know, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Anyway, either way, I'm tired as at the moment. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna continue this tomorrow. So next morning, I'm actually now sort of half toying with the idea of of actually mounting the battery on the floor behind the driver's seat. Sort of keeps more weight between the wheels. So basically, not only weight, it also means that your crank lead or fucking battery leads are shorter, which means you get less loss. Not a big deal. I've got this 35mm squared double sheath cable, which cost me nothing because I used to be a telecommunications technician, so we used to use a fair bit of it, so I got a little bit of it laying around. So yeah, I'm thinking about putting the battery in behind the seat. Gives me a bit more boot space for when I want to chuck wheels or whatever I need to in here. Also keeps it away from fuel, which is, you know, I suppose ideal from a scrutineering standpoint. And yeah, keeps weight between the wheels, which is good for weight distribution. So that's the idea. That's what I'm toying with at the moment. So at the moment, I'm going to pull rear seats and all that sort of stuff out. So I got pretty much all the back of it stripped out now. As you can see, pretty much everything from the front seats back was just completely stripped. Just to clarify as well, stripping it like this is not me being all about saving weight. It's not about, like, let's save every gram of weight, because it doesn't really make, I don't think, that much difference unless you're going to go through the effort of actually getting body deadening and that sort of shit out. But basically, it's all about just getting it out of the way. As a track car, basically, a lot of the time, I will literally use this area just to chuck tools, jacks, tires, fuel, whatever you need. Just chuck it in. So it's a lot easier not having to worry about something leaking into the carpet, or, you know, what you're getting dirty and that sort of stuff. Also, for mounting purposes and that sort of thing, it's just a lot easier to have it clean. Obviously, as far as the actual car goes, I leave the front of it pretty much forward stock because I like it to actually be sort of nice to be in. Keeps it, I don't know, it sort of gives it a bit more of a real feel. Having the standard dash and actually having carpet and body deadening and all that sort of stuff just makes it a bit nicer to be in. Obviously, the other thing is, if you're not going to the effort of like a custom body loom and that sort of stuff, it's actually a lot less work to leave the dash in, because it's already shaped, all that sort of stuff. So unless you need to take it out for cage and that sort of stuff, find it easier just to leave all that stuff stock and keep the standard body loom in that. That's basically what's going on here. Obviously, I'm also going to have to put in a firewall in the back area as well, because I've got all my fuel system in the boot, so I have to sheet that off and play it over the top, build basically a sheet parcel shelf and that. But yeah, think about mounting my battery pretty much down here in the footwell, or maybe up here, and that's pretty much how the back of it's going to be, is nice and empty, and I can just chuck wheels and toolboxes and whatever I need to in here when I want to. That's the whole idea behind it. It's not about saving weight, it's just about getting stuff out of the way, not having to worry about stuff, being able to mount things in there, and yeah, just making as less work as you can for yourself, because drift car. So I've got the box mounted in here. As far as mounting the box, just 4 trusty tech screws, and it's solid as. Now, I did rip this battery box out of a car that I parted out, which is good because it means it cost me nothing. But I don't have the factory strap to actually strap the lid down. So what I've come up with this idea is actually the center seat belt that I just pulled out of this. I'm going to cut off below the stitching of the buckle, obviously, and use a plate to mount that down there, and then cut the back of the actual seat belt and mount it down there likewise. And then I actually have a strap that I can use. The buckle, it's adjustable. If it's good enough to keep people in a car in the accident, it's probably good enough to keep a battery in a battery box. So that way it's secure, it's adjustable, and it's just using stuff we've got lying around. So I'm going to get onto that. I've got some little alley plates that I'm just going to use as plates. I'm going to wrap the seat belt around the plate and then drill it in with either some tech screws or a nut. I haven't decided yet. Alright, so here's my seat belt that I've cut and prepped. And these are my little bits of alley, which are actually the leftovers from what I made my intercooler mounting out of yesterday. So the plan is to use them and sort of roll it up a few times, and then yeah, either drill through. I don't know whether to drill through and use nutserts and bolts, or whether to just tech screw it. I originally was going to use nutserts before I decided to use the buckle, because I wanted it to be accessible, but now that it's going to have a buckle on it, it's going to be real easy to access. Probably don't need to use nutserts. I can probably just tech screw it. It's going to be just as easy. So I'll probably just tech screw it. It's quick, it's easy, and that's what we're about, because budget drift car life. Also, a lot of people don't just have nutsert tools lying around. Fortunately we do, because Rex bought one when we was building the V80, but yeah, that's not really something that's easily accessible. So I'll probably just tech screw it, just because it goes with the theme of the series. So that's what I'm going to do. The final product, here we have it. Battery box is in there, solid as. As you can see, you just got the plate with the single tech screw in the middle. Tech screw either side to sandwich it down. Same with the back, so that's strong as, it's not going anywhere. And like I said, if it's good enough to save people, it's probably good enough to save a battery. Plus, if you ever need to get to it, it's as simple as unclip it, and there you go, there you have it. So That's basically one of the ways you get away with building cars on a budget, is to be very resourceful. Use stuff you got lying around, or stuff you don't need out of the car. And yeah, there you have it.
Recycle and repurpose.
Now the other thing I probably should add is the reason I mounted it up here instead of down here is because I will be caging this car, obviously, at some point. And obviously, I don't know if you've noticed from videos, but I'm quite tall. I'm quite a long boy. So I have to sit quite far back, which means it's going to have to be caged like sort of back around here, the main hoop for the B pillar, because otherwise I'm going to smack my head on it. So basically I wanted to keep it up here so it's out of the way for where I potentially may want to put my cage later. So I've got all this room to build my plates, because obviously my cage is going to have to be bolt in, because I'm not going to go through the pain in the ass of getting rid of the sound and deadening so I can weld it in. So it's going to be pretty much just a bolt in, probably half cage at this point is what I'm planning. And just so I've got somewhere to mount harnesses and that sort of thing, but I'll have to plate it down here somewhere. So I wanted this up here out of the way of the cage. So still good there, but like you could still fit a tire or a wheel upright in behind it. You can still fit a wheel upright in front of it as far as going to the track goes. Obviously my seat will be probably back around here because I sit quite far back, so I've got very long legs. Anyway guys, that's probably going to be a wrap for this episode. Like I said, I'm not going to bother mounting my surge because I need to change the fittings and stuff anyway, but it's only 2 holes and 2 bolts and nuts, so it's not a big deal. I need to get another fuel pump and I need to get another mount for my second 044 there. But as you can see, this is basically what the set-out's going to be. I've explained it a few times, I'm not going to go through that again. Anyway, got it stripped, battery box is mounted. As far as battery cables, I pretty much plan on just running them in Coro, or like obviously negative will just go straight through the floor somewhere and onto an earth, probably on the chassis rail or something, like a really nice body earth. Positive will go basically out. I'll run it in some corrugated conduit or something, pretty much straight up. My plan is to go straight up that tunnel on top obviously, and then just sneak it in the shifter hole out of the way and into the engine bay. Alternatively, I might actually run it up and through the dash somewhere, and that's where it'll go, obviously through to the starter. Or actually I'm got to put it through to like a positive bus, like a bar, a positive bar or bus, and run everything off that. So obviously have then one off there to the starter and alternator and all that jazz, all that stuff that has to happen. But that's pretty much the plan there. So that's good. With the battery being not all the way at the boot, means I'll get less loss through the cable, which is great. But so that's pretty much going to be it for this episode. I've lined up a Series 1 shell, like a whole nother shell. Basically, Series 1 doesn't have ABS, Series 2 does. I don't want ABS, I want this ABS module gone, I want that space. Series 1, I also need another, like I said, I want to double up Series 1 sway bar, so I need another Series 1 sway bar. I need a new garnish from that one that I burnt. So there's a few things that I needed, specifically from a Series 1. The issue I had was trying to buy them parts all separate from people was going to cost like, yeah, too much basically when you consider how cheap you can get another shell. So I've lined up hopefully another shell for early next year that I can get here, and that way I can start ticking along with all that sort of stuff. Also means obviously if I get a spare shell, I've got spare drive shafts, half shafts, spare diff again, so I'll have 2 spare diffs. I'll have spare panels, all that sort of stuff. Like I said when I was mounting the intercooler as well, I'll put the Series 1 corner lights in with the indicators so I can delete the indicators out of the bumper, so I've got more airflow there. So a fair bit of Series 1 stuff that I want, and it just made more sense to buy another shell than it did to try and buy it all separate. So hopefully that gets here. Hopefully I can get hold of that early next year, because that's going to be heaps of stuff that I can then continue on with. Obviously I've got a few things to keep going with, but like I said, money's tight, and that's the biggest issue at the moment, is just trying to keep up the parts that I need. So I really need to get my gearbox back together. I need to spend a fair bit of money on new synchros and stuff for that, but anyway. So cheers for watching guys, as always. Hope you learned a little bit on this episode. There was a bit of good info in there, and I'll see you on the next episode, which will be pretty soon. See you in old jazz. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, because if you're not, you're probably missing out on some pretty cool stuff. Obviously there's a lot of stuff that we get up to that's probably too severe for YouTube, so I put a lot of that stuff on Instagram because it's probably more socially acceptable and I won't get strikes in that there. So yeah, follow me on Instagram for that stuff, and yeah, I'll see you when I'm looking at you guys. Catch up.